Imagine you're living in a modest one-bedroom apartment in your hometown. You've been the ideal tenant, always paying rent on time, keeping the place immaculate, and getting along well with your neighbors. Now, the lease is up for renewal, but instead of offering you an extension, the landlord wants you out. Not because someone else from the community needs the space, but because a tourist or a digital nomad is willing to pay more. Where you once paid €500 for a month, the landlord can now earn that in a single week. It's a win for him, but for you, it means packing up and leaving your home. You're forced to move, farther from the city, farther from your job, farther from your family. This is a frequent scenario that's taking place right now across Greece. While it may look like paradise from the outside, the country is becoming unlivable for its local people. Since 2017, rental prices in the capital city of Athens have nearly doubled. Across the country, they're up almost 70%, a serious problem when wages have not risen for over a decade. Behind the postcards and the beaches is a countryside in the middle of a severe housing and cost of living crisis. Tourism drives much of Greece's economy, employing nearly 2 million people. But in cities like Athens, short-term rentals like Airbnb have surged, pushing out locals and driving up rents. Here's a map of Airbnb-registered properties in central Athens. The red dots mark entire homes or apartments, while the green ones represent private rooms listed on the platform. Pretty dense, right? As of December 2024, there were over 14,000 Airbnb listings in central Athens alone. But that's not even the most surprising part. What's truly staggering is the number of listings per host. More than 70% of all listings in central Athens are multi-listings, meaning they're managed by hosts who operate 2 or more properties. For comparison, in Paris, that figure is 32%. In Berlin, 39%. Even in Rome, it's 59%. This isn't just a few locals making extra cash, it's a full-blown industry. Behind the scenes, a network of landlords, property managers, and short-term rental companies are running this business at scale. But what about the people who actually live here, the permanent residents? In Greece, the minimum wage hovers around €700 a month. Some earn a bit more, maybe 800, even €1,000 if they're lucky. But even then, the reality isn't much brighter. Finding a decent place to live in or near the city centre for under €600? Nearly impossible. Most rentals now fall somewhere between €650 and €1,000 a month. You don't need a calculator to figure out what's left after rent. Barely enough to cover electricity, heating, groceries, or anything else. This isn't just a housing issue, it's a question of survival. So you might be wondering, how did things get this extreme? While much of Europe faces similar challenges, Greece's situation is especially severe, thanks to something it became infamous for: debt. To understand today's crisis, we need to rewind to the 1970s, when Greece emerged from dictatorship and embraced democracy with hopes of a brighter future. To fuel progress, Greece spent heavily, building highways, expanding hospitals, and growing public sector jobs. For many, it felt like a new era of stability, with steady salaries and pensions. But there was one pretty significant catch. Greece didn't have the money to pay for it. Successive governments took on debt not just in crises, but as a routine policy. So much so, public debt tripled in the 1980s. At first, it didn't seem like a problem. The economy was growing and other countries were borrowing too. However, in Greece, where businesses ran largely on cash, cracks were already forming. By the late 1990s, as Greece prepared to join the Eurozone, its debt had climbed to 97% of GDP, far higher than healthier economies like the UK, 50%, and Japan, 60% at the time. For a country overspending and under-collecting, it was a disaster waiting to happen. Still, Greece pushed ahead, officially adopting the euro in 2001. But the bigger issue was structural. Unlike before, Greece couldn't devalue its currency or print more money. Adopting the euro had removed both options. The country was trapped with no easy way out. The numbers were staggering. Between 2009 and 2014, Greece's economy shrank by over 25%, a near total collapse. By 2010, Greece was forced to accept a $110 billion bailout from the EU and IMF. That rescue came at a steep cost. To repay its debt, Greece slashed public spending. 1 in 4 government workers lost their jobs, and those remaining faced pay cuts of up to 30%. Healthcare systems broke down, leaving thousands without care as taxes continued to rise. For many Greeks, the country no longer felt like their own. To recover, Greece doubled down on tourism, its most reliable asset. With 6,000 islands and nearly 14,000 kilometers of coastline, it upgraded hotels, eased visa rules, and promoted its natural beauty. The strategy paid off. In 2009, under 20 million tourists visited. By 2024, that number soared to 41 million, a 200% increase, bringing in $22 billion. To complement their new approach, the Greece Golden Visa program was launched in 2013. A €250,000 property purchase granted a 5-year residency, a policy that successfully drew over $5 billion in foreign real estate investment over the past decade. On the surface, it looked like a smart solution to the crisis, but most of the 16,000 properties purchased weren't for living. They were investments.
The Kambanis family are pioneers of short-term rentals in Greece. 8 years ago, they started renting out this apartment for some additional income. And the income, often from overseas visitors holidaying in Athens, helped them save this property from repossession.
In fact, 94% of these purchases were converted into rentals, spending most of the income overseas and creating long-term consequences for the local housing market. Before there was time to respond, locals were priced out of their own childhood neighborhoods. Protests soon filled the streets, not just against rising costs, but to defend the soul of their cities. By 2024, rising public anger forced the Greek government to act. It raised the Golden Visa property investment threshold, offered incentives to convert short-term rentals into long-term leases, tightened regulations on platforms like Airbnb, and imposed a 1-year freeze on new short-term rental registrations in parts of Athens. The effect of these changes are yet to be determined, but what is clear is that policymakers are becoming increasingly more active in regulating this space. The affordable housing crisis isn't just a Greek problem. It's now a full-blown issue across the EU. The European Commission has started floating the idea of tapping into its massive €392 billion cohesion fund to support affordable housing efforts across member states. Would throwing that kind of money into the problem fix it? Probably not. The roots of this crisis go much deeper, and solving it will take more than cash. Still, it's a step in the right direction. Until then, ordinary Greeks will continue to navigate an increasingly hostile housing market, priced out of their communities and struggling to stay afloat. Behind the glossy tourism ads lies a country fighting to reclaim its livability, where the right to a home shouldn't be a casualty of economic recovery or foreign investment.